That's
All
a
right.
shame.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. We are in the Eldon F. Marrero Board of Selectmen meeting room located on the second floor of Town Hall. Before I ask everybody who can stand for the pledge, please be aware that this meeting is being recorded for use on the internet and our local cable station. You can join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, and amongst many other things, welcome to budget season. Couple of quick items to take care of before we get into the budget. One, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 7th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, I will make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of January 14th, 2026 for review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, accept the meeting minutes of January 21st, 2026 for review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we've passed that. Move along. Our first presentation is from Mr. Golder with Town Treasurer Collector budgets
Debt.
and debt.
Debt. So in the past, we've just gone down the changes, so I
Yep.
can go over those one by one.
Sure.
The first line, the appointed official, that's my salary. That's a 3% contractual increase. 5112 is the fiscal clerk. That's now Brenda. She had taken over, last year's budget was for for Allison who had left. So she came in at a lower rate, so that went down 12%. 5118 is the assistant treasurer collector, Maureen.
Mhm.
She has a 3% raise. And 5119, that was Jean's position previously. Gretchen's taken over, and so she's at a much lower seniority level, so that went down 17%.
Okay.
The next change is longevity. That went down $1,100, again, because Jean left. And then I'm requesting a $2,000 increase in 5303, which is data processing services. That's our payroll line. Our payroll company is stopping doing payroll at the end of this calendar year. So I'm talking to some people about new payroll company, looking at Harper's right now, who a lot of municipalities use. But so that's gonna reflect some of their new charges. The next is 5420 office supplies. I've just kind of been going over my office supplies budget the last few years, just with all the increases of everything in costs. So I have a $500 increase there. And then 5731 is annual school. In August, there's the treasurer collector annual school every year. And their costs also have just gone up.
And that's training, right?
Yep, that's training.
Nothing to
and
do with the school.
Nope.
It's yours.
Coming up.
It's at Hotel UMass. They have all the classes there. And so I got certified treasurer and certified collector. I can start sending my staff and do some
Sure.
training up there.
Okay.
Would that be the proper job description for that, or for 5731? Annual school, or would it be like long time learning or something like that, or is that like what we've always called it?
I don't know where the names
Nomenclature
originally
would
came
come
from. Yeah. So it is, I mean, it's annual and it's school. So.
Yeah.
But
Sounds fair.
No, just
we're always.
Yeah.
for clarification, I just.
Yeah, I do have a separate, there's an education line on there somewhere, I heard.
Tuition
Yeah.
reimbursement,
Tuition.
Yeah, so
5192.
that's
Yeah,
there
that's
too.
Not the same.
So
I mean,
that's
that,
not,
that's it. I don't,
I think annual school is just fine.
Yeah.
I don't think, I appreciate the clarity, but I don't
Yeah.
think it gets held at town meeting for $200.
No.
so that's everything for treasure collector. If there's any other questions.
Nope.
Nope.
We can move on to the debt budget, 7,100. This is mostly the same at the beginning. 5911 went down $10,000 as we paid off one loan from last year. I think you guys had a copy of my debt spreadsheet too, which has the details on how much is remaining and
Yep.
all that. The Title V line, 5915, went down 10,000 as we paid off one of the Title V loans last year. And that's not we're not doing any more new loans, so that should just keep coming down. And 5922 is bands, which is the short-term borrowing that I do usually every November. We have to pay off the ambulance that we borrowed for in 2021, so there's 100,000 left on that. We may have to borrow for the fire truck that was approved a couple years ago. It's gonna be ready either right at the end of this year or the beginning of next fiscal year. So if we have to pay for it before July 1st, we're gonna have to borrow.
Short term to get to July 1st.
Yep, we'll have to do, and that'll be like a 6-month loan till November, and then we'll put it in with the other one. But if we do that, we'll probably have to pay down some of it. So I have that, and then we have a few school items on the bands list also. We'll end up probably having to pay off the feasibility study through the short-term borrowing. If the school had passed, it would have gotten rolled into that.
Mhm.
But so we'll have to. So that ended up going up to 400,000, which is a large increase, but we gotta pay these things off.
Okay. Makes sense.
The next department is interest on the long-term debt, 7510. With our level principal borrowing, the interest does go down every year, so that's the decrease in 5902 and 5916. And there's no other changes there.
And if I just want to throw this out because people always ask where we're at with the school, right? If I'm reading your sheet right, as of July 1st of this year, we're $17,920,000 left.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And the final year of payment on the smaller loan there, the 2.8 million, is 2037. So we got 11 years left on that one. And the bigger one is done in 2039. So about 13, 14 years left on that.
Sorry, the lesser one you said would be done when?
2037 is the
Okay.
last payment. So that was a 20-year loan.
Yep,
And then
okay.
the other one was 25.
Thank you. Great. Sorry if I interrupted.
No problem. And the last debt category is interest on short-term debt. I had 100,000 last year, and I'm requesting 100,000 this year. Right now, it's at about 60,000, but again, with the fire truck, I might need a little more that I don't know of yet. And I can always apply any unused money to that and lower other costs as well.
Good. I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just making my notes. I don't think I have any questions either.
None.
No.
All right.
Thank you very much,
That's
Scott.
it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Drive safe.
Short drive.
Yes, very short.
All right. Chief? Well, there's two of you. Chief Nixon.
Evening, sir.
So with the lines, if there's anything you wanna start out, I mean, but I'll go over any of the changes that were kind of more than our anticipated COLA.
Okay.
So the salary line went up, anticipation of the three, but higher due to, we have young guys that are all getting master's degrees, so contractually, that's just kinda going up with their step raises. Their not their longevity, but their masters plus they're moving up in the ranks with the step raises.
Yep.
So overtime vacation, that is one of the higher increases, only because even though we lost Sergeant Bryant, I have 3 brand new officers that are getting an extra week of vacation. And we've been running negative in that line for the past 3 years, so I added that just to encompass the extra 21 days of vacation coverage that we're gonna have. Overtime for court, we've been running under that line for the past 2 years, so to kinda give myself some relief in 2 of the other lines, I underfunded that based on previous years, and then moved the balance to the SER line and some building repair, because again, we are gonna have some maintenance issues over next year or so. I'd like to address those sooner or later, but I did that by taking that balance from my court line. Property maintenance, we went up a little bit, that's a small line, it's just cause clean supplies and paper items, they're getting more expensive.
Mhm.
Municipal building repairs, that increase was taken from the balance I took out of my court line.
And what is, I mean,
So essentially, that's like, I'm doubling that, because, for instance, paint, maintenance, repair, our windows are starting, we have to redo the seals and stuff like that. So where I underfunded the court line, because I feel I can manage that with other overtime and how we staff court, it was a lot easier to pull out of that line to add to my building maintenance.
okay,
Excuse me. Agency services, we went up, it looks like a big percentage, it's not a big dollar amount. That's our safety day stuff, that's our Halloween bags, that's, our Citizens Police Academy. Anything we can do to kinda, more than just show up at some of our community events. Dues and meetings, unfortunately, dues and meetings are also dues are essentially going up for all our professional administration, Southeast Chiefs, Plymouth Chiefs, Mass Chiefs. Those dues have gone up. I also, I've added, again, I feel part of my job is to have a succession plan ready. I've added Lieutenant Craven to a couple of those agencies, just so he now gets the benefit of those meetings. Training expense, where it's a well, it looks like a significant percent bump, but we're gonna lose K-9 Richie Flaherty in November of '27. In order to have, I guess, lack of a stopgap, we have to prepare and have someone in an academy prior to him leaving. That way we don't overlap and lose the dogs and whatnot. So that's why you'll see that training expense line, because that's additional academy for someone in-house is going to cost roughly that increase.
so that's, I'm not gonna use the right language, that's a dog that's a academy.
It's a specialized,
as for
right, so,
K-9.
so there's a general canine, and then there's narcotics, and whatever we wanna train this dog, and there's a series of schools that they have to go to, and that increase contributes to that.
So the dog's retiring with,
The dog will go with him, and the
Okay.
reason, and our reasoning for that, the dog's kind of at that 50% plus. Even if we kept the dog, that dog comes offline to go back to an academy with a new handler. This dog is too old to kind of
retrain.
retrain
Can't
with
teach
an
an old dog new tricks?
You
Is
cannot
that-
teach
Is that
an
what
old
you're
dog.
saying?
You said it, I did not. So that would be that increase. And then my service contract line, we've been running over on that for quite a few years. So again, I'm trying to mitigate some of that with my court overtime, and I've added that increase to my SER line.
What is in there, what are this, just service contracts in
So
general?
that's our IMC, which controls our entire CAD system. So that is our dispatch, our records, that is our investigative modules, that is our power phone. So that's our EMD services, that's our Power DMS, which is our records maintenance and written directive services. That's Motorola, because everyone has a service agreement and user license now.
Yep.
What they've done, every time we've kind of got more tech, they've caught up and they've created, well, now everything is a user license. And what they do is it's based on size, but it's also based on 5% bump every year, and I'm just trying to catch up with that.
Okay.
And that's, in a nutshell, is pretty much my increases, with the decrease in, like I said, longevity, and then the decrease in the court overtime.
No, I had questions, but, permanent salary's increasing with retirements, but you explained that it's gone down the last 3 years and it's been back around as people are in there.
And truthfully, we're an older, younger dynamic.
Yep.
We're now younger, and all those younger kids are now starting to be
Yeah,
older.
well, I know.
I shouldn't say kids, but the younger.
No, but
Generation.
we've appointed many sergeants in the last
Yeah.
couple of years, which
Got
is
it.
a result of that, so.
I was reminded last night that there's an opening for another sergeant at the Citizens Police Academy.
Funny you say that.
Yeah. I had questions on the dog, that was answered, you answered a few others.
And then the purchasing the dog, we've been preparing for this. I don't know if we're gonna be able to whole hog, but we've raised donations in other accounts, so when I tell you try to do everything we could not to make a capital budget or a huge increase we've done that. I think I can manage replacing the new dog with these, what we've asked.
How long is that, training?
So General Academy, we're gonna lose that officer and that dog for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then they're running, where they are specialized, they don't run as often as the regular MPTC, ROCs, right? So they typically run spring, fall. And in
Okay.
order to get someone in that school, that'll be fiscal year, this will be the fiscal year we're preparing for.
Yep.
So when he retires in the following fiscal year, we don't have, my fear is if we don't act,
Now.
we lose it, and then
Then you're behind.
life happens, and then we're not using it as it's intended.
Yep.
And the current dog will stay with retired
Current-
Officer Flaherty at that
Dog
point?
gets retired, and then
They both retire?
maybe that becomes our comfort dog, or I mean,
Okay.
that dog was a pretty good life as it is right now, so I'm jealous.
I can't wait to, see him perform.
Okay. Mike?
Any questions on the police line?
No, sir.
So the canine line, the canine control line, it's a percentage, it's a very significant increase, but that was due to, we fell in and out of a contract. And then, when the contract was finally agreed upon and signed, we had already done our budget for this fiscal year. The contract and the agreement was made after we were in the budget season. There was significantly more days added to the contract to cover any kind of costs. This is still relatively inexpensive compared to what other towns are doing, but for what we've been paying, that is a significant cost, and that was mostly care of dogs, minimum required nights of stay.
So this is really J&M Pet? Is
It's
that who-
J&M Pet. It's mostly our kenneling services, which this also gives us 1 year because we're out of contract at the end of next year, and my understanding, we're gonna have to, I don't know that, I don't wanna speak for her, but conversations we've had, we're gonna have to explore other options. And that,
All right.
that's it.
Anything like that?
That's it, thank you, chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Aw, that was cringe.
For those of you who couldn't see, there was a high-five exchange.
There was a fist bump high five.
You never prepare for those.
It was an awkward Tom Brady-esque moment back there, to be honest. So,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
All right. I guess same thing, I mean, you can, I guess, spot anything that's non-contractual, we'll go from there.
Okay, starting with 5111, that is a 3% contractual
Yep.
obligation for myself and my salary. Same with 5112, which is clerical. That is the same 3% COLA increase for her. Permanent salaries is a 6% increase, which covers the 3% COLA and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 firefighters that are up for step raises this year. 2 of those step raises are firefighters that are achieving 15 years of service with us, which is a pretty substantial
Wow.
step raise for them. And the rest of the 5 firefighters are within the first 5 years of their service. So they get a step raise for each year until they reach the 5th year. That covers that. The next line, 5134, 5136, and 39. Those are overtime coverage costs. We have a new firefighter that was added in October. So she's allotted 36 hours of personal time. So that would cover 5136, 5139, which is the personal, funeral, and military coverage, along with the vacation and holiday requests that I'm asking for. The holiday request does not cover what I actually do need, but knowing that we're in some financial times of ask what you need and make do, that's what we're asking for this year. So we can at least make do, keep shift coverage the way it is, 5 firefighters a shift, 2 ambulances rolling out the door at all times, so those increases cover that. The last 2 is for ambulance supplies, which is 5500. That's a 2-part request. One part is the fire department is the sharps drop-off for the community. Those coverages, the coverage cost for that has gone up pretty substantially in the last 2 years, along with EMS supplies for the ambulances. The last I looked, FY19 was the last time that was increased. So, respectfully asking $7,000 to be added into that line to cover the overage for the sharps drop-offs and the EMS equipment for the ambulance. We carry more equipment, we're busier than ever. We have firefighter medics doing outstanding things on a daily basis for people. So we buy the equipment through a third service. They come every 2 weeks and they stock our closets. So it's pretty, we track it very, very well. So there's no overspending and there's no, lack of a better word, fraud.
Waste.
You know, yeah, there's no waste when it comes to EMS supplies. And the last request for 5590 is $1,250 for the new hire and her clothing allowance.
Just for me, back up top, the permanent salaries, 51105. So 7-step, 3% plus the 7-step. There's not the new firefighters in there too. Like that's just. I'm just looking at I'm trying to understand the dollars roughly.
So for the 2 firefighters that are getting, they're essentially a
15.
8% raise
Okay.
each. And then the lower step firefighters, which is,
5-year.
yeah, it's with every year for the first 5 years, you get a 5% step increase. So they don't have 5 years on the job yet. So
Okay.
that's just a budgeted thing
So
for
it's
each year.
department 3% plus those steps. Okay, just want to make sure I have that right. I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Drive safe.
So moving along, David, are these you? These small ones?
So if it's acceptable to the board, there's 5 smaller budgets. I'll just group them and batch them and do them all at the same time.
Sure.
If you have any questions, let me know. Agricultural Commission is 600, Women's Crisis Center 2750, Brockton Area Arc 250, Old Colony Hospice Care 2,000, and Plymouth County Services is 200. All of those are level funded year over year. There's no additional increase requests.
I've got no questions. Those have been the same since I was on Finance Committee, so. Moving along, communications and reports from boards, commissions, and town officials. Tony Kinahan, resignation from the planning board. So this is Anthony Senior, just for clarification purposes. I think you spent quite some time on that board.
Yes.
That now means 2 people have left that board, Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kinahan. So there'll be some change coming to that. Much like we did for Mr. Hurley, if we could pen a letter of thank you for Mr. Kinahan, I think that would be appreciated. Anything?
No, I second that, but then I think it's important to put a call out for volunteers because we're gonna have some openings on the planning board and we need that board to be full. We need that board to be seated, so if anybody's interested in stepping up, they should notify the office.
Super. Next is correspondence from the public to determine a course of action. I have none. Moving that along, public comment period. We have 1 member of the public in the audience.
No, I'm good for now.
All right.
For now.
Moving along, town administrator report.
Thank you. So, first is we have a handful of complaints in town when it comes to traffic. And, you know, Lincoln Street is still a concern that we're still trying to tweak and work on. But the other one is speed. We have complaints to our department, to your department, Selectmen's department, and to the police department as well. And so if you recall, a couple of years ago, based on a citizen's petition, the board entertained the notion to add speed humps up at Scotland Street, and we did that. Personally, I like speed humps. I'm not saying that, I understand why people don't, but however, I find them to be very effective. And I believe that road, it's been very effective having speed humps. And the residents who live up there that wanted them are happy, and the ones that didn't want them aren't happy. I mean, I get that. But at the end of the day, we have to do something to be able to reduce speed in town and do it from a public safety standpoint. And the chairman and I have talked about this, and, you know, Jeff has mentioned to me numerous times, and he was like, we've got to do something in the FY '27 budget, so that way we can do something, whatever that something is, so we can, to reduce speed. So, because we're in the middle of budget season, or we just started budget season, the DPW department will be coming in a couple of weeks, if not, I think it's March. And I don't think it's fair to have that conversation at that time, obviously he's going over the budget. I'd rather get guidance and leadership from the board as to what you would prefer us to do. And if you like speed humps, great. If you don't, you don't, I get it. Could we look at other speed calming measures? I've spoken to the DPW director, he's mentioned that he thinks also effective is the radar post signs. We have filed for a grant for that, so we'll see if we can get some, but that isn't gonna cover all of them. So we can either add money into that DPW budget, we can do it as a separate warrant article that we can do every single year. Like, I don't know how the board would like to proceed, but I figured I'd put it on as a discussion before that budget comes up, so that way I can tell him to make sure that he's doing it in concert with the board's wishes.
So I can tell you, the start of this conversation for me, I was in another state. And anytime you get near a school, the crosswalks for speed humps, the signs, you know, our 20 mile an hour, let me back up for a second, our 20 mile an hour slow down flashing signs. This past year, I don't, you know, I go to work most days, but probably 3 weeks after school, get out, I drove by it and it was still flashing. You drive by it on a half day and it's still flashing in the afternoon. Like, it's not true, it's not accurate. And that disturbs me because we want people to slow down, and I think we should do some enforcement to get people to slow down. But before we can do that, I think we need to modernize those signs, number one, right? Get them so that there's a central control, programmable control, whether it should belong to the school, the police department, whatever. But let's get something that we can control, that we can flash, we can make more obvious. The second part to that particular town or state I was in, with the 20 mile an hour flashing, had the radar piece that said your speed is this. And with that, it also had some pretty bright strobe lights that flashed and pushed a button, much like you would for a crosswalk. I know we have a guard, but the more we can do, the better. Like, I think our public safety, or, you know, that falls into DPW right now, police, but our public safety around the schools right now is lacking. And the last thing that place had was speed humps. That was the crosswalk. I know speed humps get mixed reviews, and I'm honestly, I'm concerned about them here, but it's part of the conversation. I think it's just, I've also seen bad things happen when people ignore the signs for speed humps and go flying over them. So for me, you know, I look at a kid crossing Crescent, I look at a kid crossing North Elm, I look at a kid crossing, you know, Spring, right, you know, over, you know, by the school, coming out of the high school to get onto, you know, just in general, like all around the schools.
Mm-hmm.
I think 106 is okay, you got a stoplight, that part works, but I think all these secondary stuff, even with the crossing guard,
Mm-hmm.
I still think like we can do more to draw attention to that. And I think, I don't know how old that equipment is, but none of that equipment really flashes. It says school zone, or, you know, slow down. And when it does, it's not always telling us the truth.
Yeah. So, I didn't
Yeah,
know if you were
no,
done, sorry.
that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a discussion at this point.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I'll be very clear, I was against the speed humps on Scotland. I remain against the speed humps, not that I'm in favor of speeding necessarily, but because I don't think.
Guilty.
Just because I don't think they're as effective as everybody, you know, wants them to be, or believes that they are, honestly. I like the this is your speed, you know, those signs and stuff, but I have personally seen people on Scotland Street, you know, speed up to the speed hump, get over it, speed up to the next speed hump, get over that, and then they're flying down the road again. So I don't think that it is a permanent solution on that street. I think it's a very temporary, and, you know, for that one spot on the street that it works. So I'm against speed humps in that sense, or for those reasons. And I also know that there are some residents, like to David's point, there are some residents in the neighborhood that like it, but there are some that I've heard from that do not like the speed humps. So, you know, So I am not in favor of speed humps. I'll make that very clear. I have on a few occasions, I think, but I am in favor of looking for alternate solutions because I do believe that, especially around the schools, to your point, speed is an issue, and I am concerned about the children, and we want to encourage the children to be out and walking to school, and we need to make sure that it's safe enough for them to do so.
Yeah. And my experience, I mean, I'm off a Crescent, so, I mean, people are rifling down there, and I do see the police there, but you we only have so many and
Yep.
so much resource, and they're not always available just to sit and do traffic, if you will.
Yeah.
Michael?
I also do not love the speed humps, and I think that with our last storm, I'd love to hear from DPW on what that did to snowplows. How, if it slowed them down, if it potentially damaged any equipment, how they thought about it, and as the days got longer for them as far as the hours, because that was a long event. We haven't had snow since, like, significant snow since those were put up. I'd like to hear about how they were. One, and two, were they easy to get up and over for vehicles? I'm sure they were, but at the same time, I'm sure those will freeze over before the rest of the road.
Sure.
So I'm sure that I do have some concerns, so I'd love to hear from
Well,
them.
I also think that, it's 2-1 no on speed humps, but not necessarily 2-1 no on updating the signage.
No, it's not necessarily the speed. I would like to hear
Sure.
from the DPW on, what effect that was on the plows. I don't particularly think, similar to what Marcy said, I don't particularly think that they slow people down. I think they might slow them down for that instance, if they even see them.
Yeah.
Because they're not very brightly colored. And at certain times of the day, you don't even know they're there. Like, I'm going speed limit, I forget they're there because you can't see it. 'Cause the sun.
Confession, I signed for them, I did everything, I checked them out when they were put in, and I can tell you I've hit them at full speed before. Well, I've hit one at full speed before. At that point, you slow down for the second one, but I fortunately didn't lose control, but guilty. No, so I mean, that's it. I mean, maybe if Phil can price out what a speed hump is, and then also what that, for lack of a better term, that stick would be, that, that.
Speed stick.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, school zone flashing 20 miles an hour, your speed is, because let's face it.
And
if
those
that
can
comes-
move. They don't have to be stationary. Some of them are like.
Well,
moving
I'm thinking, like, I wanna update, right now, if you're coming down Crescent, it says 20 miles an hour and it flashes,
Yeah.
right? And it's only supposed to flash when
schools
kids should be
especially.
crossing.
Yeah,
Not
that's
even,
a fair
just when they're crossing. I think
Or
in the middle of the
certain
day,
hours,
when they're
yeah.
not, when nobody's coming in or out of the school, it doesn't need to be on. I would like that to be accurate. I would like that to be a little brighter and get a little more attention. I'd like somebody to understand how fast they're going there, and with all that in mind, maybe we can do some more enforcement in that area when those are on. And then, but I mean, I can't, if that, what I just proposed costs $50,000 for one, then we're in a different spot than if it costs 10. But I think there's a need to, just personally, I think into the DPW budget, a dollar amount on an annual basis that's focused on some piece of public safety. And then we go from there. Maybe there's an argument that should be in CapEx. Maybe that's a discussion too, but I think we need to commit to updating some stuff in town, some of these old signs, and get a little more modern, because people are distracted, right? If we don't, they're distracted here, there, and everywhere. If we can't put something bright and flashy in front of them, they're probably not gonna slow down.
Yeah. No, and I think, I'd like to ask the DPW director about how the plows
The
went
humps,
around
sure.
and how they took weather.
But to your point, I think that people are desensitized by the lights always blinking and saying,
Yeah.
slow down, it's during school. It's like, well, it's 2 a.m., there's no school.
Yeah.
So you get very desensitized to that, so you don't pay as much attention as you should be paying to it. So, yeah.
Okay. Is that enough direction, David, or?
It
do you-
is. No, it's a good start. Because
Overwhelming.
what I think I'm gonna have Phil do is to put together a little presentation with that information. On that note, you all know individually, I meet with each one of you between the night before and the day of every single meeting. Mike and I had that conversation. He wanted to get feedback from the DPW. So I did have a conversation with the DPW director and also the assistant, so it was a three-way. In their feedback on the speed humps, again, I like the speed humps, because I think they're effective, is that there was no issues with the plows. They're good with it. We had no issues this storm. We've not had issues since we've put them in. However, to your all point, I agree that only 2 really reduces speed only in that snapshot of time. And so if you were to add more, it would be more effective, but clearly that would be in.
Then we're off-roading.
I'm not advocating it.
I am not in
Um,
favor.
But part of my thought process was, do we create a speed hump policy that we could do speed humps through the rest of the town where we think that it's necessary? And that's where Mike, the DPW director, and the assistant both said, that would become problematic. Because they know exactly where these speed humps are, because they're the only 2. They adequately slow down, they plow over them, it's not an issue, we've had no property damage to the vehicle or any of that. However, if we had 10 roads with 2 apiece, and you have to remember where 20 of them are, he said that's just not gonna happen.
Mhm.
He said, then you're gonna have a problem.
Mhm.
So, so based on that, those speed humps specifically, not an issue. The more we add, the more problematic they would become. The other item that he asked me to talk to you about based on that conversation, and again, I know I've had some preliminary conversations with each one of you individually, is to revisit the idea of potentially turning North Elm Street and Crescent Street into a 4-way stop. We had a pretty severe accident there yesterday, and people do drive pretty fast up and drive North Elm. I have been concerned with that because North Elm has never had stop signs to slow the traffic down. And I think that a lot of people who grew up in this town, one that lives there now, it would be a change. And so I don't know what the local population would think about that. I have no idea.
Can we fax, is it possible to get a list from the police chief, the places where the most accidents,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the intersections where the most accidents are happening?
Yeah.
I believe that's gotta be in the top 2, I
no.
guess I wonder if, the other one to me, I don't know, maybe by the cemetery where Nico's and whatever that, up here, Madfield,
Yeah.
Madfield and
Matfield.
North Main.
I can tell you that historically, either number 1 and number 2 has been the Crescent West Street intersection. Because again, we know we need to look at that one.
Yep.
And historically, the Lincoln Street intersection, so I can tell you, I have it on a list. I'm gonna wait another 3 months, try to collect 6 months of data or so, and then report back to the board. But I wanna see that set of lights that's up at Lincoln Street, it's working really, really good in every direction except for westbound. We recognize that, we need to tweak it, we're working on it. There's a handover issue, once we get past it, we can play with it some more. But so far, I think the data shows that we have been able to minimize car accidents up there since those lights went in. But I want a longer snapshot of time, make sure that that's accurate. So again, we'll have to balance. Is it a little slower going out of town? Yes. Is it safer going out of town? Potentially. So again, I'll get that data. But to your point, we can get it for North Elm Street as well. But the DPW was thinking that would be a key intersection if we want to slow speeds down, is to put the blinking stop signs on North Elm and not necessarily on Crescent. There's already a habitual belief that you have to stop at Crescent, because you've been doing that for decades, but not on North Elm. So that's why he was thinking we would flip it. But again, I could bring that back to you at a later date. But I think at this point, that's enough information. But Mike, I want to make sure that I report it back to you as to what his findings were.
And as much as I don't like stop signs, I'd be in favor of stop signs over speed humps. I just wanna go on record to talk down about speed humps again, just making it very clear, I'll take a stop sign instead of a speed hump.
Noted, no comment.
Inspectional services, you'll recall about 2 years ago, we looked to organize the regulatory inspectional services area. So that was the Board of Health, the Conservation, and the Building Department. And I think we've done a really nice job creating a one-stop spot area for our residents. Because before, they were going up and down the stairs, back and forth to different departments, and now they don't do that. And the second thing is by grouping them all together, even at lunchtime, it's always occupied. Whereas prior to, residents, a lot of times they come in on their lunch break, and when they do, they would be closed. So that has worked really well. Under that reorganization, we had 3 administrative staff, 2 full-time and 1 part-time. Part of that thought process was because under the infrastructure reduction, the Inflation Reduction Act, there was going to be a lot of federal funds that was available, of which we have received. You remember last year, we got over $500,000 or so, off the top of my head, and Tracy had that information. This year, we know it's a different regime. Grants have dried up. They're not flowing to Massachusetts. We all understand why. And as a result, there's not as much money available. I think as town administrator and as department heads, we have to be good stewards of all of your money. And so as a result of that, a person that was part-time left, and we thought that right now it would be better to have just 2 full-time people. Tracy will do the bulk of the grant writing, because again, there's not as much to do. We will still fund a part-time person, so that way if we can be nimble, we will be in the future. If grants come back, or we find out that we just ran too thin, so we'll have the money there. But right now, we have moved who was the grant writer, who is a clerical administrative staff, across the hall over into the Building and Conservation Board of Health area, so that way we have 2 administrative staff, so as one goes on vacation, somebody else is there. So we think that we're providing really good overlap and a high degree of customer service to residents, making sure that it's staffed, and also aligning from a financial standpoint the reality of today. So I want to make sure that you had that information as well. Again, you're still gonna see it in the budget going forward, so we can be nimble if we need to add that person or make some adjustments in the future. Cherry sheets is the terminology for state aid. This is the preliminary one from the governor's office. You will see up here that this first page is an increase of all state receipts. The blue lines are direct revenue sources. The white lines are the ones that go to the town municipal offices that we control. All told, you can see the total increase is $249,000 or 2.65%. However, please keep in mind that out of that $249,000, $105,000 of that is school choice. I have not had a conversation with the school, but I was surprised by this. Because school choice is always, it's looking in the rears, meaning that it's reimbursing you for the previous year's enrollment, because clearly they don't know what the new enrollment is gonna be. But the fact that it's up, it only means that there was more school choice, and we thought that it was lower. So again, maybe I have that wrong, I need to have a conversation with the school, but this is from the state. I mean, they're getting this number somehow. So 2 things, I wanna drill down to find out what that is, but that also means that the reality is that for non-school choice aid to the municipality is actually only up $140,000. And out of that, $22,000 goes to the library. So it's really only up a little over $100,000 or about 1.1%. There is something wrong with the state formula. You all recall that it was only 2 or 3 years ago that the millionaire's tax or the fair tax for all passed, and it was passed under the umbrella that we were all going to see this vast increase in state aid. This is 2 years in a row that we're around 1%. And Jeff and I met with Senator Driscoll about this earlier in the year. I don't think we got any answers. I'm not being negative, I'm just being honest. Like, we are trying, we're doing our best. We're meeting with our state delegation, and we're not seeing it. I don't know where the money is going. In any event, these are our real numbers. Now, the legislature hasn't met yet. Obviously, they can tweak it accordingly. And as you know, in years past, every time they do, I bring it back to you so that you can see it. But it is, these funds are in a way that we balance our budget. The next sheet is additionally problematic. You will see that all estimated receipts has also gone up $45,000 or 4.23%. And you can see the specific lines where it goes up accordingly. Whenever people leave our local schools and they go to a charter school, we pay for it. It doesn't come out of the school budget, it comes out of the town budget. Retired teachers' insurance always comes out of the town budget, it doesn't come out of the school budget. So as those increase, the town pays for it, you can see it in front of you. So now, think about it, On the previous sheet, it showed that inclusive of the library, we were getting about $145,000 increase year over year. Now they're gonna take $45,000 more from us year over year, so our net increase is $100,000. It's a $50 million budget. It's always nice to have extra money, but $100,000 on a $50 million budget is just not sustainable. There is something wrong. I don't have an answer, but there is something wrong with the state formula at this point.
It seems like it's real frustrating because school choice kids, the state pays for. However, going to a Voc school, the town pays for.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Why isn't it treated the same? And granted, I understand those schools cost more money, but it's part of the education that we're providing for the kids.
Yep. I just wanna make sure you know one item. If you look here on tuition assessment, see how it says towards the bottom, school choice sending tuition? That is actually money that comes out of our local school. They pay it to the state. The state then reimburses the town the following year. So my point is, even though the state is giving us the money, it's actually coming from the other school districts. So that $1.4 million is not state aid from the school, it's being collected from the other districts. So for example, if 20 students come from Brockton, Brockton is paying into that fund under school choice sending tuition. It collects at the state level, and then the following year they give it to us as a reimbursement. So it's not actually real state dollars, it's local dollars.
But when it goes to, just so I understand, when they go to the Voc schools happen, then we pay for that out of here, or does it go the same manner, same path?
No, Voc schools come out of us entirely, that is correct.
And this year, for the first time, the incoming class, we no longer have any understanding of how many students we may or may not pay for.
It
As
could be
the
all.
state, as
Oh,
the
for
state has
Southeastern,
gone
yeah.
to
For
a full
Southeastern.
lottery for Southeastern.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we could have, traditionally, we've had a fairly level number in the 10, 14 range. It is now a lottery. They could pull, if we had 20 kids, 25 kids that put their name in the hat, they could pull all 25.
There could be 100.
And we could have to budget for that way. Or they could pull 5 and we could have to budget that way. So it'd be great for the town if more kids got in, but we can't even plan for it in the middle of budget season, so. And we've had multiple conversations with our state senator with regards to that and still don't have an answer back.
And I believe that we're not the only town in the area that is
Oh, it's the
concerned
same,
about this.
it's the same
Yeah.
for every town,
Everybody's
so.
concerned about not knowing what the hit's gonna be yet.
Yeah, and for the general public, just to understand how it works, because I think there's only gonna be one way we're gonna find a solution, is that we have budget season right now in February, March, April. In early April, you're gonna approve a budget. It goes to town meeting in May. Somewhere in middle March, Southeastern Regional is going to give us what their assessment is. If all of a sudden they pull 40 new names and it goes up $4 million, we have to find $4 million from March to May. And the bill is due on July 1st. There's just no way a municipality can do that. Under the previous system, there might be small incremental adjustments that you could figure out, but you can't do that in a couple of months. So I want the general public to understand why there's the frustration, and my guess is the only solution is going to occur when there's a real crisis. Like literally West Bridgewater or some other municipalities gonna get hit with a $5 million assessment in a blink of an eye. And then they're gonna go running and say, what do we do? And it's really sad because there won't be any assistance at that point. That municipality is gonna be really hurting that year. And hopefully that'll wake somebody up at the state to say, we need to fix and address this.
What was it based off before I went to a lottery system? Because I always thought it was by population. I went to Blue Hills, and each town got like a set, like you were saying, a set amount based off the population to go to the regional school.
So I'm not the world's expert on how it's allocated, but this is my general understanding, is that we have 9 communities in Southeastern, and each town is allotted a certain percentage for applications. So in West Bridgewater's case, we may send in 150 applications, but based on that percentage, maybe it's only 120 that they can consider. And then they randomly, after everybody qualifies or is pre-qualified, because they have to pass certain qualifications about grades and attendance and that type of stuff, then they pull out randomly at that point. But that way, every municipality has a certain little percent. It's fair to everybody. Like, for example, Brockton is by far the largest municipality. Brockton has by far the largest population. They should. But it's never going to change by 30% in 1 year based on that narrow formula. So I may have that a little bit wrong, but generally speaking, that's the intent and that's the way that it works. Now, literally, this past year, I'm off the top of my head, but they received somewhere around 1,400 applications. They could only take 400 applicants. It is my understanding that minus just a couple of really, really minute details, all 1,400 are gonna go into a bin, they're gonna close their eyes and they're gonna pull. And what happens if all 400
Come out
comes
of one
from,
town.
comes from one town?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're gonna have 8 very upset towns.
And children are gonna have multiple entries. Each
Some of them
child can qualify for multiple entries in that big bin.
You get one when you apply, you get one if you have good attendance, you get one if you write a letter.
This system. You gotta make a mistake,
Welcome to
right?
the
The
state.
same people that
Definitely.
came up with a lot of
Same.
other stuff,
Yeah.
Mark.
So again, Mark, just so you know, it was DESE, the Regulatory Authority of Education, that came up with the regulation because they were apparently lobbied by one school district that was unhappy. And instead of saying, oh, maybe we should adjust whatever is happening in that district, they said, we're gonna come up with a statewide regulation. That is not a law, it's a regulation. It is then, not my understanding, but pretty clear on this, is that the House last year, for this current fiscal year, recognized the problem and put into their budget that DESE's regulations could not move forward because of all of these concerns. It was a legitimate, cogent thought process on the House's side. For whatever reason, the Senate thought differently. And then during reconciliation of the budget process, the Senate side won, which was to scratch out that sentence or phrase and therefore allowing DESE's regulation to go forward. And as a result of that, as Jeff said, we then met with our state delegation on the Senate side to try to see, can we get some answers to this? Can we make some adjustments? And at this point, there's been none made. And unfortunately, as I said, it's gonna take a crisis. Some town is gonna get hit with a massive bill with not enough time to figure it out. And again, no judgment, just reality. If all of a sudden we had 90 kids, just for whatever reason, and we had a $5 million increase going to Southeastern like this, our local school's not gonna reduce its budget by $9 million or $4 million. They have fixed costs
Well,
already,
I agree with you.
and they're not gonna do that. So they'll have much less population, but still a similar budget, and that's really gonna hurt you as the taxpayer.
Oh, I agree.
All right, Plymouth County, every single year on the cherry sheet, we get charged for, a couple of years ago, they started requesting local approval, we've always approved it, but this is just to approve the spraying as they see fit. And also, FYI, if people feel like we need spraying in town, if you call Plymouth County, upon request, they will make that additional spray as well.
I'm gonna hope that with all this cold that we've had, we will not need the amount of spraying that maybe we have in the
We're gonna
past.
have a lot of water when all the snow melts.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of larvae, eggs, whatever a mosquito is that's in the ground right now is terminating.
I hope you're right, and just in case you are really interested, I placed in this packet, the annual report, so you can see exactly how much larvae in West Bridgewater there actually was. And then, last is for your next meeting is February 18th, and again, we'll continue our budget season at that point.
That's good.
All right, at this point, we're gonna adjourn the public session, and we're gonna enter into executive session. I have a motion that I'll read. I would like to entertain the motion to enter an executive session, not to return to open session for purposes of conducting a strategy session for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the Assistant DPW Director, GIS Administrator, the COA Director, the Fire Chief, the Building Commissioner, the Assistant Town Administrator, and the Town Administrator. This requires a roll call vote. Marcy?
Lee, yes, however, I will be recusing myself from a portion of the executive session.
Okay. Ryan, yes?
Perez, yes.
Okay, at that point, thank you.